Oh. Speak? Will there be like an,
No.
oh, so I don't have to like turn it on? It's on.
Mine's working. Yours is not.
It's working. It's just the light's not working.
The other lights.
Oh, you're right.
Some of the lights don't work, but they are.
If you want to bump us out, you can tap to bump us out
To that, okay.
if it helps you, but there's not enough of us for.
Oh, there'll be like a separate option here.
So if I put in a request to speak and you hit RTS. Oh, wait. Where's the, there used to be a button to skip.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I'll just take, we'll take ourselves.
November 14th, 2024 meeting of the Santa Monica Rent Control Board is called to order. Everyone, please join me in salute to our flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose? Here. Commissioner Foster?
Here.
Commissioner Ivanov? Vice Chair Gonska?
Here.
Chair Leslie?
Okay. I don't think we have any requests for public comment, but if anyone wishes to address the board, either on a specific item on tonight's agenda or at a public comment, please see the secretary to fill in the speaker slip over on the side there. And now we'll look at last meeting's minutes. If commissioners have had an opportunity to review the minutes, I'll entertain a motion for their approval. Commissioner Foster?
I reviewed the minutes and move that we accept them.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And can we have a roll call? Oh, she's here.
You can do a
Okay.
voice vote for that one.
We'll just do a voice vote to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on to special agenda items. Does the executive director have anything to report to the board?
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Vice Chair, Commissioners, members of the public who've joined us tonight. The fall issue of Rent Control News, the agency's newsletter, will be going out to all owners and tenants of rent-controlled properties at the end of the month. This issue highlights recent changes to state laws relating to moving in and out of a unit, owner requirements when building ADUs, and remedies available to tenants who are impacted by construction or the removal of amenities, and an important announcement regarding open applications for the city's Preserving Our Diversity, or POD program, which can help tenants 65 and older who have lived in rent-controlled apartments since before January 1st, 2000, to achieve a minimum monthly income after rent of $986 for a one-person household or $1,724 for a two-person household. We are also announcing 2 upcoming seminars that will be held in early December. First, we will be presenting the annual Landlord-Tenant Forum with the Consumer Protection Division of the City Attorney's Office on Monday, December 9th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Martin Luther King Auditorium at the main library. Registration is required, so anyone interested should follow the link in the newsletter or sign up on the Seminars and Newsletters page of our website. Then the following day, December 10th, we will be offering a seminar for tenants in Spanish at Virginia Avenue Park. Registration is not required for that event. Finally, the Planning Department is conducting a survey to gather public opinion on a possible increase to the height limit for fences, walls, and hedges in front yards. Tenants and property owners alike are encouraged to participate. There's a link to the survey in the newsletter, or people can go to surveymonkey.com/r/fence wall hedge. That's one word, but of course it'll be in the newsletter, so keep an eye out for that. I wasn't here at the last meeting. He's not here tonight, but I wanted to offer my deep appreciation for departing Secretary Alvin Ho. He was wonderful here in the chambers and also a great colleague in the agency offices. And I just wanted to say that I'll miss him, but I wish him the very best in his new position with the city. And thank you to Mahogany for taking the reins for the meeting tonight. And that concludes my remarks.
Great, thank you very much. So now we'll move on to the public comment section of the meeting. Do we have any requests to speak? No. Okay, thank you. So then moving on to jurisdictional items. The first one up is an exemption for 2207 23rd Street. And maybe have a staff report, please.
Commissioners, Ms. Faylis and Mr. Doctor purchased a 2-unit property at 2207 23rd Street back in October of last year, and they said that they moved on to it on January 20th of this year, and they've applied to exempt it as an owner-occupied property. They are the property sole owners, and the board records indicate that the property only contains 2 units. So the question before you is whether they have provided evidence to show that they lived on the property as their principal residence since at least April 30th of 2024, which is 120 days before the filing date of the application. They don't own any other residential, they do not reside in the other residential property that they own in Santa Monica. They provided leases to show that it's been rented. They provided utility, financial, and government records that also show that they live on the property since at least April 30th of 2024. And the hearing investigator who went out to the property because there were no tenants on the property, her report also is consistent with their claim that they live on the property as their principal residence. Because the evidence shows that they meet the qualifications for the exemption, staff recommends that the board grant the exemption and adopt the attached findings of fact and conclusions of law.
All right, thank you. Any commissioners with questions? Commissioner Ambrose?
I have no questions, but just a comment.
Sure.
Yeah, so I read the staff report also. I think that the petitioner has submitted evidence, including bank records, credit card submissions, DMV reports. Also, I read the detailed report from the hearing officer demonstrating that Ms. Fallis and Mr. Doctor has sufficient evidence that they are living on the premises, and I am satisfied that all three yes, all three requirements have been satisfied. And so I will move that we approve the owner occupancy in number 003XP20240530 at 2207 23rd Street.
Second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Yes. All right, the motion carries. Okay, moving on to 10B2, another appeal, or sorry, this is an appeal tonight for 1318 Harvard Street. And can we have a staff report, please?
Commissioners, tenant Gerald Cipriano filed a rent decrease petition alleging various maintenance conditions and reductions of housing services, and the hearing officer granted decreases totaling $351. The owner has appealed the decision. The board reviews this matter as an appellate body. Therefore, it should affirm the decision if it's supported by substantial evidence, even if the board may have decided differently had it been the finder of fact. As detailed in the staff report, substantial evidence supports the decrease granted for the gap in the security fencing around the middle yard. Furthermore, since that decision, the hearing officer has reinstated the rent for the security fence around the middle yard, so it's no longer in effect. The hearing officer also granted an $85 decrease for loss of the rear yard, which Ms. Kavan has eliminated for construction of an ADU. That amount is in accordance with the range in the board's regulations and reflects the complete loss of an amenity that Mr. Cipriano has enjoyed for over 40 years. And the owner also argued in her appeal that the totality of the decreases granted are not proportional to the tenant's rent. However, as detailed in the staff report, the decreases granted for the other conditions are also proportional to the level of the impairment as well as the tenant's MAR, and each is supported by substantial evidence. Staff therefore recommends that the board affirm the decision and its findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about the staff report? We do. Any questions about the staff report first? No, okay. We do have a speaker, the petitioner, Jerry Cipriano. If you'd like to step to the podium here. And when you're ready, you'll have 5 minutes.
I had submitted already a written report that contradicted a lot of the landlord's points. And I could simply repeat that, except that, am I supposed to use names or address you as the board?
You can address the board.
Okay, but the board has already given a brief summary without the individual points. But anyways, one of the points was now a moot point. There was an enclosure around the property. Previously, it was removed, it's put back now, and that rent reduction was reinstated for the landlord. However, I believe the totality of all the rent reductions was not proportional to the amount of amenities that were taken away. I'm under a very low rent control right now. I've been there for 40 years. And I would not object to it. I would have compromised everything and accepted things that I did not find acceptable, except that the landlord appealed this and is trying to retract some things. For example, the landlord asserted that the loss of the rear yard was much smaller than a middle yard loss that we had 20 years ago, 2007, something like that, which was not true. The middle yard was 480 square feet. The rear L-shaped yard was 700 square feet. The landlord asserted that this was merely a walkway to the carport, which is false. We had extensive gardens back there. We had a patio. We used it all the time. We had a clothesline we used all the time. No more clothesline. So the assertion that the loss of the rear yard was minimal by the landlord is false. Secondly, the hearing officer for the rent board minimized our loss of carport storage. The hearing officer said that it was 18 square feet. What it was in front of the car, we had 36 square feet times 4.5 feet high, secured, and that is 162 cubic feet. So calling it 18 square feet is kind of glossing over the problem. Besides that, we had another 162 square feet underneath it that we used for storage that was less secure. We didn't worry about it getting stolen. We also stored things in the rafters, like homeowners with garages would. I had a ladder up there. I had some lumber. I built things. And the hearing officer said it was an unpermitted use. There's no such thing. There's no regulation that says you can't put things in the rafters because everybody does it all the time. The storage loss was essentially 4 to 5 times larger than the hearing officer allowed. Besides that, it was argued that by the landlord that the totality of the rent decreases were not equivalent to my low previous rent. I could have made arguments that they were much higher losses than that. They refused to fix some of the things, hoping to get a rent reduction, a rent decrease pushed back. They refused to fix termite-eaten floorboards. They refused to rebuild a kitchen fan. The hearing officer said it could be done, kitchen fan could be done different ways. I'm a retired architect. There's a health code that says you need a kitchen fan. You don't just open the window and hope it evacuates. We fry something, the apartment fills up with smoke. What else was there? The landlord argued that we claimed we lost tandem parking. Carport parking covered, uncovered driveway going back to the alley. Said that we didn't lose tandem parking, we only lost single parking because the tandem parking is not allowed by the city. But the landlord then built an ADU, provided parking to everybody else except for us. There's an extra space, uncovered, that has bollards. You know what a bollard is? Preventing us from parking there. Everybody else can park there.
So, sorry, your time's expired, but if you want to just finish that point there, and then we'll have to move
I'll
on.
summarize it. The landlord could have had a much lower rent reduction, if I'm not saying this negatively, but they chose to take as many amenities away from us as possible and then try to get some of it reversed here.
Okay, thank you very much. Should we go to the appellant next or then ask questions? Or ask questions first? Ask questions of him or staff? No, man. I don't have any questions, but just Okay, we also have a request to speak from the appellants. If you'd like to step to the podium here. Yasmin Kavan, hi, and you'll have 5 minutes as well when you're ready to begin.
Just want to make sure my cell phone is off.
Sure, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Preliminarily, do I address what he said, or do I just?
It's up to you what you'd like to communicate to the board.
Okay, thank you. I'm ready.
Okay, you can begin.
Okay. So I filed the appeal, and the issues on appeal were the $85 decrease for.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Just want to make sure your microphone's on. Is it working there? Okay, sorry, but
Is it?
yeah, now it's working. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I filed the appeal on two issues. One was the yard, patio, balcony, or play area, 68 to 72, page 68 to 72 of the decision. There was an $85 decrease for that. And I do think it's important to consider the rent reduction that was given for the loss of the middle yard in 2007. On page 27 of the 2024 decision, page 27 of the 2007 decision, there was a $25 deduction for the loss of the middle yard at that time. That yard was much larger than the rear yard that was removed. And the reason the rear yard was removed is we built a new ADU there. So it wasn't to take it away from the tenant specifically or to punish him or anything like that. We were building an ADU. There's a housing shortage. So this was a positive step by us. And the middle yard was much bigger, and that only resulted in a $25 reduction. Now, the $85 reduction is almost 10% of Mr. Cipriano's MAR, which is $827 as of September 1st, 2024. So 10%, in my opinion, is extreme when you consider that the bulk of the living occurs inside his unit, where he has a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchen, and a living area. So 10% is very high. I do agree there should be some reduction. I'm not saying there shouldn't be any, but I think 10% is extremely high. It was a pathway. It's kind of difficult to imagine maybe, but it was a pathway that went around the carport And Mr. Cipriano had used it despite my objections over the years to plant things, and I had told him not to. And in fact, in the 2007 hearing, he had tried to bring up the gardening as a reason for the rent reduction, or one of the things that he lost. And in that hearing, the hearing officer specifically stated that there is no evidence that the use of the yards for personal gardening was an amenity for the subject unit in 1978. There is no loss of an amenity for the loss of gardening privileges. So the fact that he used that area for gardening and is now saying that he has lost that ability to do that had already been determined in 2007 to not be an amenity. So what we're really losing is access to a rear pathway behind the old carport to get from his unit, which is closest to the street and has access through the alley to the carport at that time. Now there's no real reason to access the rear of the premises because there's an ADU there and there's no longer a yard. Again, I'm suggesting that 10% is too high and there should be a lower amount closer to the $25 that was reduced in 2007, or even less, because that was a much larger yard with a grassy area that one could sit and enjoy. I also am appealing because I believe the rent reduction is excessive in relation to the tenant's rent. Mr. Cipriano's rent prior to the rent reduction was $825.90. The rent reduction awarded is $351. That is a 42% rent reduction. His unit consists of two full bedrooms, one bathroom, a living area with a fireplace, a full kitchen, and a dining nook. This is the bulk of his rental, where he lives, eats, bathes, and by his own testimony at the hearing, where he works. So the loss of the parking, storage, laundry, and yards totaled $311, which is over 37% of his rent. And it's disproportionately high in comparison to his rent. Because while some loss should be apportioned, over 1/3 of his rent being deducted for amenities is not justified, you know? I took out, the rent loss was also for a minor kitchen flooring issues. And I took that out of that and I came to the 37% figure. So he's losing, he's getting 37% rent reduction for all exterior issues, not related to living inside his actual home.
Okay, thank you. Your time has expired, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Is there anything else to do, or do we
Well, do the commissioners have any questions for either of the speakers? Okay, no, then you can have a seat. Yeah. You can stay, but just in the gallery, or leave if you prefer. Well, we'll discuss it and then we'll take a vote on this petition.
Is that tonight?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any commissioners wish to speak to this petition? Okay, Commissioner Ambrose?
Just some comments regarding what was just stated by the appellant. About the ADU and about that being, a positive thing and about, the yard loss. I mean, regardless of the reasons for the yard loss and that being, a positive thing about the ADU, I mean, the remedy for the rent reduction is for the tenant's loss of an amenity. So I think that is an important consideration, that is the reason why we are giving the rent reduction to the tenant. And also about the proportionality of the rent reduction, each rent reduction is considered separately. So regardless of the fact that, it's a certain percent of a rent reduction, each individual rent reduction, there's the flooring, the fence, the yard, the kitchen, the parking, the storage, the laundry, those were each considered separately by the hearing officer, and, that's how the figure was arrived at. So that's just my general comment for now.
Commissioner Foster?
Thank you. There's no question in my mind that staff did not err and that the hearing officer did not commit any errors in their decision. I will go, like my colleague Commissioner Ambrose did, one step further and say that the totality of the basket of goods that we all contract for, whether we're renting an apartment or a store in a strip mall where we have a small business or office space for our company, we contract for a basket of goods. When goods are subtracted from that basket, we have laws to make that right. And there's no question that the hearing officers followed the law. Things have certainly changed since 2007. I'm not surprised that amounts are different, but this board is not responsible, nor is this hearings department responsible for decisions that were made in 2007 on a completely separate and unrelated case. But lastly, I would just say, to rent an apartment is different than to rent a store in a strip mall or a storage space in some parking lot. It's our home. It's someone's home. And if they have used a storage space for, whether it's to hula dance or crush some video games or to sit and meditate, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Once someone has contracted for the quiet enjoyment of a lease of a property, it's theirs to use within the law and within the rules as they see fit. And when it gets taken away, it hurts. It's a huge change, regardless of the size of the yard or what somebody else uses it for. So, ADUs, housing, we need it. It's true. But it doesn't mean that the losses suffered by now what's becoming dozens upon dozens of tenants just in Santa Monica. It's going to be in the hundreds before we're done. This is a larger issue across the city of Los Angeles and the state of California. And I know that folks are looking into larger scale solutions to the subtraction of these amenities and of this contracted space. People can't just move to another apartment because of Costa-Hawkins. The tenants in many cases are just as handcuffed as sometimes the landlords feel. You cannot just go to another 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment because your amenities got subtracted from this one, because the rent might be 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times what you're currently paying and what maybe you can afford to stay in the community you've spent, in this case, 40 years in. So I just wanted to give a little respect to contract law and case law that has come before, and say that I am completely and totally comfortable with our staff's decision in this case. And I would like to move that the board affirm the hearing officer's decision and findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up on the agenda is item 10B2, which is an appeal for the property at 1255 Princeton Street, Unit 101. May we have a staff report, please?
Commissioners, tenant Andrea Lynn Roberts filed a rent decrease petition alleging that her landlord had collected rent in excess of the MAR, and the hearing officer found that the owner, Mr. Samuels, had in fact done so. In excess rent totaling $6,140.24, and also awarded an additional $500 of interest in accordance with the board's regulation, and the owner has appealed that decision. The record shows that the initial MAR established by the lease was $2,099 as found by the hearing officer, because the evidence showed that an accounting sheet that was submitted to the tenant at the same time as the lease showed that to be the rent. Mr. Samuels even registered that amount as the initial MAR in 2016, even though he argues that it should be now a higher amount that includes surcharges. But surcharges are not part of the MAR. Substantial evidence therefore supports the hearing officer's finding on that point. And because of that finding, the amount of the MARs that the landlord had put in his rent increase notices in 2020, 21, and 21, 22, and 22, 23 all overstated the MAR. Mr. Samuels therefore collected rent in excess of the MAR during that period. And board regulations state that when you calculate excess rent in a petition like this, an owner is not entitled to the annual GAs for a given year if at the time of their imposition, the owner had knowingly retained excess rent. And the hearing officer found that he had done so, and substantial evidence supports that finding as detailed in the staff report. The owner's other arguments that he's not liable for excess rent because Ms. Roberts did not immediately file an excess rent petition when he first overcharged her, or that the board had a duty to determine the correct MAR at the inception of the tenancy, all lack merit and are not in accordance with the board's regulations. Staff therefore recommends that the board affirm the decision and its findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Okay, thank you. Do any commissioners have questions on the staff report? Okay, I have one question, and can you explain to us and to the public why this hearing, in the decision, the period of time that is essentially awarded a decrease for was 2020 and 2021, when the tenancy began in 2011, why it didn't go back further?
A tenant, if they've been charged excess rent under the charter, has the right to go to court to collect that excess rent and file suit, or they can take care of, or they can do so through the administrative remedy provided in the regulations. That administrative remedy allows the tenant to go back 3 years. And so that's what it was 3 years from when they filed the petition.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any other parties here that have requested to speak. So do we have any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Foster?
Yeah, I'm comfortable that staff has exercised the law properly and calculated things properly. We work really hard to educate the public. We take, I think it's worth noting that in the annual report, almost every single year, the thousands of calls that come into the agency have always been about 50-50, if not heavier on the side of questions that are answered for the landlords and property owners and managers. So, we are here for folks to avail themselves of what they can and cannot collect from tenants. If there's ever a question, there's no doubt that they can come to our staff and get a timely answer. So, I think that there's been a misunderstanding on the part of the property owner, but that the law is what it is, and it seems very clear to me.
Thank you. Commissioner Ambrose?
Yeah, I'm also satisfied that there's been no error here, so I'll go ahead and move that we deny the appeal number ENR-P2023-05189.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, item 11, public hearings. Consideration of proposed revisions to Chapter 15 for hearing procedures. And we'll begin with the staff report from our general counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. There goes my purse. This is to enact revisions to Chapter 15, which is entitled Hearing Procedures, but which currently is empty of any hearing procedures. Right now, the procedures for the excess rent petitions and the rent decrease complaints are housed in two different sections of our regulations, Chapters 4 and 8, and yet there are also other types of hearings that have to refer back to those chapters which are dedicated to different types of complaints. And so in order to allow the public to have a little bit more ease of reference and to find these procedures more readily, we have undertaken an effort to combine these procedures and house them where they belong, which is in Chapter 15. So what I would like to do is just take you through a couple of the more major, and when I say major, just efforts where we had to reconcile some of the inconsistencies between the two chapters. And so if I could direct your attention, staff report.
Just went off.
It just went off. Thank you. So if you can go to the first page of the staff report, and then I'll go on to the second page. Just as a general matter, we have tried to explain what days actually means. So we have identified whether a time period is calendar days or business days, so that it's clear to everyone what the time period actually is. We've also indicated that when a petitioner asks for a continuance, then they also have to agree to a waiver of the 120-day timeline that's indicated in the charter. Currently, there are no rules regarding electronic submission of evidence for hearings. And since we have gone to mostly remote hearings, we have allowed the parties to submit their evidence electronically, and so we want to make sure that there are clear guidelines as to how to do that. Not quite yet, thank you. We want to make sure there are clear guidelines as to how that evidence should be submitted. So we have done that in 15004. 15010 are the rules around the timing of the decision. There were some inconsistencies between chapters 4 and 8. Chapter 4 indicated a timeline of 65 days, but that's inconsistent with the charter. And so what we have done is we have reconciled that by using Regulation 8050, which does not contain that timeline. And then we have specified in Rule 15019 that 120 days in the charter controls, and that timeline for good cause can be extended. And again, that 15019 also talks about the waiver requirement when a petitioner has asked for a continuance. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up to you, we have clarified and codified current practices regarding when the board should hold what's called a de novo hearing. That hasn't happened during my tenure here, but there is a procedure for under extraordinary circumstances when there has been, an obvious problem with the hearing below, that the board can undertake that process itself. So I have tried to clarify in the regulations exactly what those standards are. And we have already been operating under that standard, but it helps to have it actually in writing. And that's really, I wanted to mention one other thing. 15013B talks about an aggrieved person. Way back when the regulations were first enacted, an aggrieved person could also be a board member. I've gone back, I've asked staff, done some research, and we can't find why that was ever included.
We can be aggrieved.
Yes, as you can see, it could be very problematic why a board member would ever involve themselves individually in one of these hearings. So we have removed that. Certainly, if a board member is actually an interested party, then they would be an interested party in their individual capacity and not in their role as a board member, because the board acts as a body as a whole. And so we just wanted to make sure that that was very clear. And that is all I wanted to bring to your attention. I did want to mention that I have 1 through 15 in the staff report that makes adjustments to various regulations that used to refer to the procedures in Chapter 4. So that's more of a cleanup section. So assuming this goes through, I would ask that when you make your motion to specify that it includes 1 through 15 of the staff report. And I am available for any questions, and I appreciate you taking the time to look through this. I know it's a lot. It was a lot of work on our part, but I think it's going to provide for a lot more efficiency going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have looks like some questions from the commissioners. We'll start with Commissioner Embrys.
Thank you so much. I think that was a really thorough explanation, and thank you so much for taking the time to condense this. I know that must have been a very painstaking process to combine 2 chapters and to place it into one and to condense the language. Going back to the aggrieved person in 15013B, did you say that was taken out or that was left in? The aggrieved person, you said a board administrator could also be an aggrieved person?
So the administrator is still in there. What was removed was board member.
Okay, so we could not be
Correct.
an aggrieved person, okay.
Right.
But then in 15018, board action in lieu of reference to a hearing examiner, am I reading that correctly, that a board member could be a hearing examiner?
Let me find it.
The board on its own motion may hold a hearing on a complaint under this subchapter without the complaint first being heard by a hearing examiner. I'm reading that to mean that we could act as a hearing examiner.
Yes, that is correct. Again, that would be similar to what we were just talking about a de novo hearing. So the board member would not be intervening on behalf of a party. The board would be conducting the hearing itself.
Okay, so that would go back to like 15014, where when we're hearing something as an appellate body here, if we find an error, we would just review everything as sort of like as a trial court again, or as if we were reviewing the evidence for the first time?
No, so nothing is going to change. This is just clarifying what you all are already doing.
Okay.
So when you hear an appeal, you're looking strictly at the record. If you determine that there was error, then you reverse, or you uphold the appeal and reverse the hearing examiner's decisions, and then your job is completed. The only time you would essentially take the place of the hearing officer is under the circumstances that are listed under de novo hearing.
Right,
When you have found that there is an egregious circumstance.
Correct.
So not just a simple error on which you would reverse the hearing officer's decision.
Right. I'm just trying to understand what the point is of 15018. Like, what power that gives us, like, and for what reason? I mean, I understand that we would,
Can you give us a page number, because the summary stops at 15017. are you
So
deeper
you're in
into
the, I'm in the attachment, so under the first attachment A, you're actually looking at the regulation itself. So this was not changed. This was brought over from the old regulations. I'm not aware of any circumstances under which the board essentially takes the place of the hearing officer in the first instance. That you have the power to do that. I mean, it could be, I mean, I hesitate to sort of dream up a hypothetical.
Please don't.
But, please don't, yeah. I know. But that power is there for the board should some extraordinary circumstance like that arise.
Okay. Okay, I'll I'll hold my comments if I have any other for now.
Okay, Commissioner Foster.
Some of us do remember some de novo evidence being taken once in my 9 years and witnesses being sworn in, and it was very dramatic, very Matlock, very Law and Order. But to your point, Commissioner Embrys, it's extremely rare and should be. It should be rare. I just want to thank you for this report. I love seeing all of the changes and consolidation, the efficiencies being found, the record, being examined deeply. It's been a project that goes back several years. And I hope people in the public understand that while it may seem dry and like tedious, it's actually what helps keep people in their homes. It's what helps settle what could be nasty legal entanglements between landlords and tenants that could be very costly and time-consuming. And I think the hearings department is at the core of what we really provide, besides regulating rent levels to begin with. The hearings process is the first relief a lot of our tenants or landlords get from a process that unfortunately is going very wrong for some reason. And so we thank Tracy Matty Daub and her staff and all that have come before that have shaped this law with case law, defended it in court, Rebecca and Haka and Stephen and Allison and Tracy and Jonathan, everyone who works to make these laws what they are for a reason, is so that they stand up in court and so that the citizens of Santa Monica can rely upon them. And with one of my regular speeches, I shall end it by saying,
I just had one question.
Yeah,
and then we can do
please.
that. And I would echo those comments. I think this is extremely helpful, and I think this is a great example of how our staff is constantly looking at ways to, I think, two main things. One is to clarify and make these regulations as easy as possible for the public to understand, because even though the staff is fully available to help tenants and landlords work through this process from start to finish, it still can be very confusing, especially if you're not a lawyer, especially if you haven't been through this before. So anything we can do to clarify and make these regulations easier to understand is always welcome. And then the other thing is just to make sure we're on legally sound footing here. And I think, as our general counsel explained in the staff report, that was those two things were key here in going through this process. So thank you for that. The only question I have is just on the aggrieved person, removing the board member, that doesn't in any way change the ability of a board member to file a petition if they have an issue with their own units or anything like that, right? It just has to do with your official capacity as a board member. Is that correct?
Correct, right. Excuse me.
You're on.
Oh, I am. If the board member actually is an interested party or is a party to the underlying hearing, they have every right, just like any other resident in the city of Santa Monica, to, have their hearing held.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I looked back and, there weren't any amendments to that part of the regulations ever. So, the way it was written currently seems to have gone back to more than 40 years ago when these were initially enacted. So it's not always possible to have records or know exactly why things were done the way they were then. But I think taking a look at what is relevant and what is appropriate today is obviously a good practice. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I would just echo that and say also that Commissioner Lonnie Gwynn and Commissioner Gonska undertook a huge project to get to know this hearings process inside and out, backwards and forwards, spending dozens of hours reviewing cases and understanding with staff why this process is so important and how much integrity it really does have. So I know this section, these things mean a lot to you when this gets cleaned up. So yeah, so I'm going to move that we have heard from the public and deliberated, and I move that we revise Chapter 15 as indicated on Attachment A, that we repeal subchapters B, C, D, and E in Regulation 4039 of Chapter 4 as indicated on Attachment B, and subchapter D of Chapter 8 as indicated on Attachment C, and that we rename and renumber subchapters F and G of Chapter 4 and update references in other sections as detailed above and indicated in Attachments D and E in all 1 through 15.
Can you repeat that, please?
I could.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska.
Yes.
Motion carries.
They don't call me the one-take wonder for nothing.
All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, item 12A. The board will receive a presentation on agency language access efforts. I don't believe we have any requests from the public to speak on it, so I'll turn it over to staff for the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Commissioner Tarosa's chiming in.
So in May of this year, the city adopted an administrative instruction or an AI regarding language access policy.
Is his microphone on?
So, and that was to seek to set a standard for how and when translation and interpretation is used at public meetings, when serving the public, in our publications, and in other resources. The intent is to ensure that city services are equitably provided to groups of, quote, a substantial number of limited English-speaking persons. So there's a specific definition of that, which is those groups that comprise 3% or more of the city's population. And currently, only Spanish speakers meet this definition. So all forms and documents must be translated and made available in Spanish per this administrative instruction. The AI further directs that the board agendas and public hearing notices have in English and Spanish how to request live, real-time professional interpretation. And when possible, that documents also include messaging in Spanish, Mandarin, Farsi, Russian, and Amharic about how to contact 311 and TYY for further assistance. So we are waiting for the city to actually provide this standard language for the board agendas and for the Mandarin Farsi notifications. But at Rent Control, we have long been very sensitive to our Spanish-speaking community members. We have long had bilingual people in the Public Information Department. We've had lots of Spanish language forms. We have provided interpretation at mediations and throughout the petition process. So we're already moving forward as much as we can. There's more work to be done as well, but I'd like to just give you sort of an overview of where we are today and the efforts that we've made. So in terms of in-person and telephone information services, as Commissioner Foster said, we have thousands of people who contact us every year. About 1% of them actually ask for information in Spanish. So we have bilingual staff who are able to provide those services to them. Both of our receptionists are Spanish speakers. We have 2 information coordinators who are native Spanish speakers. We also have a French speaker in the Public Information Department, and yes, people do come and ask us to speak French with them. And then we have Mr. Mordezai, who is always available to help us with Farsi speakers, and I can tell you that people really appreciate being able to speak to him in their own language. So, for other languages that staff do not speak, there is a directory that's maintained by the city's Human Services Division or Department, and these are people who can be called to provide interpretation if they are available. So there's a language list and who's available for that language. We also have access to a live interpretation line. There's a number that we can call and connect with somebody who speaks the language we are looking for. Recently, we had requests for Arabic and Bulgarian. Unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, neither of those people ended up needing that service, so we didn't get to try it out, but I was very interested to try it. I don't know how it will go, but it's good to have. So for our information sheets and newsletters, I included an appendix in the staff report of about 100 different information sheets and forms that we use regularly. There are some others, but this really is the bulk of what we use on a day-to-day basis. Most of the information for tenants is available in Spanish. More recently, we have been translating our newsletters into Amharic and Farsi as well. But where we are lacking is that we don't have many information sheets and forms that are available for property owners. As with the information sheets, we don't have any really other than the newsletters and a couple of documents that are available in any other language than Spanish. We don't see a lot of demand for that, but we'd be happy to give people information if they need it in a different language. I do have to report that in that appendix, there is an errant Y in the form section for Ellis. We do not have a Spanish language form for owners who want to re-enter the rental business after withdrawing from Ellis. We also have a lot of forms that are on our civics portal. Because of the nature of that system, those forms are only available in English, but we can provide paper forms when needed to people outside that system. Our website is managed by the Information Services Department of the city, and the citywide standard is English. But I did want to point out, and that's why I have our website up, that there is a select language feature at the top of every page. And so anyone who wanted to get the information that's on that page can just click on that and get the page translated into the language that they're looking for. So that's a great technical solution to a complex problem. Also, people who have their browser already set to a certain language will be prompted to view that information in the language they want to see. So we also have downloadable PDFs for information in other languages. I think I need to get out of Amharic here, though. This is pretty cool, though, because you can see all kinds of different languages. Okay. So we have a lot of information sheets that, and some of them we've posted them in a different language. And so like on our seminars and newsletters page, we are announcing the upcoming seminar in Spanish. And while we don't have that information here as HTML, which is the part that can be automatically translated, we do upload information sheets in other languages. So that's how we're able to present information in a different language. And we can do more to put more of our information sheets up in Spanish. Okay, so then we also have seminars, of course this one for Spanish speakers. And a video recording of the most recent seminar is always on the website, so people can go there and see that. Chair Leslie has asked at previous meetings whether we could do a seminar in Amharic, but since we have no staff who speak Amharic, we would have to use professional interpreters for that. And so far, we haven't seen the demand, but we'd be happy to do it, if demand came forward. But we did find a technical solution that can help with this as well. So, as I said, the seminars are posted as videos. And so anyone wanting... Well,
at Grainger, we have over 1 million products, including the ones that help keep your workplace safe and sound.
Go to one of our
Welcome,
seminars.
everybody. Welcome to Rent Control 101.
And if they want to see
my
it
name, as I
in a
said,
different
is
language or
Mia
get closed
Plata.
captions, they
This is
just
my
need to
colleague, Michael
select the closed
Chelsea.
caption button at the bottom.
He works for the Rent Control Board and the Public Information Department. And we
all right.
hold these seminars
And then
3 times a year.
They can
and
select whatever
tomorrow we're
language
having one for
from
property owners,
the subtitles menu.
and if you're interested in
And so
that
you can
side of
see
it,
this
welcome to attend as
auto-translate
well.
into,
Let's see.
Arabic or Spanish. So
control or water?
we're able to
Rent
present
control.
our seminars then
Sign
in
please, and-
any other language.
And both this
virtually.
one and the landlord seminar will be online, hopefully early next week.
Do you find that
Depends on-
do you feel as a staff that precludes the need to hire a translator to do the entire presentation in a more rare language? Do you feel like that's satisfactory?
Well, I think it's a question. I think if we had a lot of people who wanted a seminar in a different language, it would be beneficial to have a professional interpreter, because then you can have the interaction. They can ask the questions and get them responded to right there. This is really after the fact, to be able to look at the information.
I mean, that's kind of the rub, though, isn't it? It's kind of hard to prove a negative. So a population who does not access information because it's typically prohibitive for them is not going to think to ask for an entire presentation to be given.
Right. So on that point.
But this is a great start. I mean, this is a fantastic point of access.
Yeah. So on that point, since the first seminar that we did this year, we have been including a question on the registration form for that seminar, asking if the attendee would like this information in any other language other than English. And so that is also part of the registration form for the upcoming landlord-tenant forum. And then we'll see what responses we get. Again, they're getting that information in English, but they could have the page translated and see that it's available. So we can try. In the world of mediations and hearings, interpretation has been available and is available for mediations, hearings, and at board meetings for both tenants and property owners. And in recent years, we've had requests not just for Spanish, but for Korean, Mandarin, Farsi, and Portuguese. And we treat these a little bit differently depending on which stage of the petition process we're in. Mediations are a little bit more informal, and if somebody has a family member, say, who can help them, we'll let them use that person. We also make available the bilingual information staff. They can mediate as well, or they can help interpretation at mediations. And then for languages that are more complex, we will use, for issues that are more complex or we don't speak the language, then we can use professional interpreters. And for hearings, professional interpreters are always used when needed. So this can be requested at any time during the hearing process. We do ask that people let us know ahead of time, and the notices of hearings do include information that interpretation service is available to them. And really at any time, they can ask for it. And recently there was a hearing that was stopped and we arranged to have an interpreter. This is all done at the agency's expense. And I just mentioned that the interpreters they get sworn in and they are on the record. And the way that they do the interpretation varies depending on the technology that's available and the parties. But and then I'll also add that all of the decisions also begin with a statement in Spanish that if the person reading it doesn't understand, what it means, to call, and we can have one of the information staff explain the decision to them. So on to costs. For the translation, we use a company called Lazar Translating. That is the city's vendor for this. And my experience with them has been very good. They're very quick and reasonable. The price depends on the language that they're translating into. So Spanish is a little bit less expensive, about $80 a page. Farsi is $100, and Amharic is $120 a page. And then for interpretation, costs really depend on how long the hearing is, what language is being used. Various interpreters charge different fees, and we use a vendor that is one that we have been using, but that is okay per the administrative instruction. And the last 5 years, the total costs for that have ranged between $300 to $6,000 when there were a lot of hearings in different languages. So we haven't used the city's contracted interpretation service, so we don't have information on how much that costs yet. So I ended the report with lots of things that we, can continue to work on. We know that we have some additional hearings forms that we could put into Spanish. We have more information sheets and forms for property owners that should be in Spanish. We need to add the instructions to the agendas and how to get live real-time interpretation. Add language to information sheets saying they can get the information in another language by contacting our office. And then I think in the real near term, we can add more of our downloadable PDFs to the website in other languages and make them available. So, and that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Ambrose.
Thanks for that report. I'm glad to hear that we have in-house native Spanish speakers who are also paid for their services. Also, going back to our newly codified Chapter 15 of our hearing procedures, that we state that we have the right to assistance for translation services. So that's also wonderful. And that we have the yearly seminar in Spanish, and that it's recorded and up on the website. That's great to hear. And also that Mr. Holub announced earlier that that we have that upcoming seminar, I think on December 10th. And as you stated, we have more planned implementations that are forthcoming. A question that I have is about Russian speakers. I guess that language didn't meet the 3% threshold. Just in my experience, as we were just going through this election cycle, I was doing a lot of phone calling, phone banking, specifically to rent-controlled units, and I made a lot of contact with Spanish speakers, but also there were a lot of Russian callers where I would call and they didn't speak English. They specifically only spoke Russian. I can't quantify the statistics on that, but there were quite a few Russian speakers. So I'm wondering if that's a population that we haven't made contact with, or like Commissioner Foster was saying, that those are that's a community that just hasn't sought out our services yet. So that's a few comments I had about that. And then further in the staff report, in Appendix A, you listed many forms and info sheets that have already been translated into Spanish, both for tenants and landlords alike. I think there were just a few that have not yet been translated yet. So I'm hoping just a few of those can be implemented into Spanish. One of them was just the appeal of a hearing officer's decision to the Rent Control Board, the authorization for representation, that's for the petition for determination of tenants not in occupancy. Let me see, the tenant response form, that was under the exemptions. I think there were just a couple more, but I understand that you have lots of planned implementation, so I really applaud you for all the work that you did, both in the ongoing process and in putting together the staff report. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I agree. I think we can, I think we need to find ways to reach out to those other communities and just let them know that we're available and that they can communicate with us in their language, maybe through some technology. But yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And we'll make sure that the other commissioners well, first, it's unfortunate Commissioner Leslie is not here, because I know this is of a particular interest to her. I'm sure you've had many conversations with her already, and I'm sure will into the future. So, but obviously this meeting is recorded, so she can watch that, and I know you're always available to answer any other questions that she or the rest of us have. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I make comment?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Dan, hold on. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. Commissioner Ambrose brought up what I was going to say about, you read my mind about the Russian speakers. So I remember that had come up during the campaign, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Just want to say thank you for your reports. I can think of other parts of our great republic that probably wouldn't give two toots about providing services in languages other than English. And I think we live in a great city still, in spite of everything, the ups and downs. And that it's wonderful that our city thought to do this, and that we were already thinking of doing it. You know, Chair Leslie and others, going way back to Councilwoman Terosis is with us tonight. She used to always talk about outreach, and that remains a mission of this agency, and I know that you are at the heart of delivering that, along with the leadership of the executive director has to help you implement and carry these things through. So thank you so much for always taking the time.
Я говорю немножко по-русски.
Wow. Wow.
And so I can say, слушаю. I hear you.
That was incredibly impressive.
And it's a privilege to present at your last meeting.
Thank you so much. It's way down there.
That's a good segue into the next item on the agenda. But sad, but we'll make it a celebratory agenda item. 12B, recognition of Commissioner Anastasia Foster's service on the Rent Control Board. And I know we have several speakers from the public who would like to speak. So we'll do that first. And first up, we have actually Councilmember-elect Ellis Raskin. And you can step to the podium. We'll have 3 minutes when you're ready to begin.
I mean, you could take longer. I'm joking. But you can finish your thought. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gonska and Commissioner Anastasia Foster. Really, what a tremendous service you have given our community over your time on this board, and really looking forward to seeing what you'll accomplish on the College Board. I was just flipping through YouTube recently, preparing for this last election, and I came across your City TV pitch for the 2016 election, and the passion and enthusiasm you had, and the vision for building a more equitable city for renters and for all people came across so powerfully. And it's just so incredible to reflect upon that now, 8 years later, and to see what you and your colleagues and now Councilmember Terosis and everyone else who has come through this board have accomplished to build a more equitable and inclusive city. You were one of the first people who really reached out to me when I first got involved in politics here in Santa Monica, in large part because I got involved in tenant activism. You reached out to me and said, let's figure out how to work together to protect tenants, to keep people in their homes, to stop displacement in the Pico neighborhood and throughout the city. And we've got a lot of work to do still here locally, but the individual impact that you have had has been tremendous and has certainly been an inspiration for me and for so many others. And thank you so much for your years of service here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ellis. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Next up, Councilmember Terosis.
Fancy.
Hi, everyone. So for those of you who don't know, I served for 6 years on the Rent Control Board with Anastasia, and I just want to say I'm so, so proud of you. I want to offer you my sincerest congratulations, and I just want to tell an anecdote. So when I was thinking about running for the Rent Control Board, they put me through the gauntlet, do you know what you're doing? And they said, okay, you need to meet with Anastasia. And I went, Michael Tarbert, Anastasia, and I had a breakfast, I believe, and I was so intimidated. I was just like, who is this person who is intelligent, seems to know everyone and know everything, and is really beautiful? And sorry if that's not appropriate to say. But I really hoped that she liked me, and I hoped that she wanted to serve with me. And honestly, it's just been the pleasure of my life to become your friend, co-conspirator. I think I've never met a person who cares as deeply, truly about the community as Anastasia. You know, when I was getting home from work exhausted, she was like, I'm out organizing a building with Jen Kennedy, and I'm talking to some tenants who are being wronged. I'm doing a patrol around the block because this building got Ellis'd, and I think there's people living in it. I'm not saying where. So whatever she does it with enthusiasm, always centering the voices of the people who aren't being represented here in this chamber. And doing it with integrity. And so thank you for everything you've done for our city. I know you're going to go on to do amazing things on the College Board. I'm so glad that you're staying involved, and thank you for all of your mentorship, friendship, fun times at Housing California. And hopefully this is just the beginning of more great work for our city. So thank you so much, Anastasia, and congratulations.
Housers After Dark.
Yes, Housers After Dark. We had some fun times.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you.
And Tracy was there too. Let's not.
I know. Oh, I know.
Thank you. Next, we'll welcome former Rent Control Executive Director Tracy Condit. It's so good to see you again, by the way, so in this chamber.
Thank you. Well, it's so nice to be back here tonight, especially to acknowledge Commissioner Foster's 8+ years of service on the Rent Control Board. And during those 8 years, Anastasia, you participated in many important decisions that have improved and simplified things for Santa Monica tenants and landlords. Your engagement in the community, your constituent communications, and your legislative advocacy, both locally and statewide, have strengthened tenant protections, the rent control law, and the rent control agency. From the beginning, I knew that you would be an excellent and fantastic rent board member. Not long after you were appointed in February of 2016, you came into the office to meet the staff and find out more about the agency and to begin to understand how you could be most effective in your position as a commissioner. At that time, Anastasia's son Ford was an infant in his stroller, and he was along for the ride, happy to hear the discussion. Now we can all see that Ford has grown up, time has passed, but he's still happy to be here for a meeting with you, and we appreciate that. It's great to have him here. So your accomplishments are many, and I could list off 50, but I'm going to leave it just to 4 or 5 really significant accomplishments. You envisioned and helped bring to fruition the information sheet about rent control that puts everyone on an even footing at the beginning of a tenancy. Landlords are required to give the information sheet to tenants, and that helps everybody understand their rights and responsibilities. As chairperson in 2018, Anastasia led the board's 6-month in-depth analysis and public outreach efforts to study the surcharge pass-throughs that, along with real estate values, had significantly increased in recent years. With Anastasia's solid leadership, the board developed a fair, straightforward solution to the challenge that has simplified things for landlords and tenants alike. You also played a leading role in helping the City Council develop residential rental leasing guidelines to ensure that units built as apartments are used for long-term permanent homes. And in 2022, you led a subcommittee with, at that time, Commissioner Torosis to identify some potential charter changes in response to rising inflation and in light of lessons learned from the global pandemic. The board successfully recommended those changes to the City Council, and the amendments received voter approval that year. On a personal note, one of the best things of all about your service is that I've made a friend for life.
Oh, no.
Although I'm no longer with the agency, I'm fairly certain that I can say on behalf of the staff members that worked with me, Anastasia, we thank you for your outstanding service and leadership. And now, having completed your service with the Rent Control Agency, I'm very happy that the Santa Monica Community College will have the benefit of your leadership as a newly elected trustee. Thanks for everything and good luck in the future.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Ford. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And so we're not even halfway done. Thank you. So that concludes public speakers. And now we'll move to commissioners who'd like to speak about Commissioner Foster. And the first, Commissioner Ivanov is not here tonight, but he provided a statement that he wanted me to read. So I'll do that. Commissioner Foster, it's with deep regret that I cannot be here today at your last Rent Control Board meeting to celebrate your near decade-long service to our city. Your commitment and dedication to public service to our city is unparalleled and serves as a model not just for your fellow commissioners on this board, but to anyone in any position of service across our city. Every day you embody the values and mission of a true public servant, laser focused on how to improve the lives of everyday Santa Monicans. Know that you succeeded in this mission, as current and future generations of Santa Monicans are better off directly because of the work you did. While I'm sad to see you leave this board, I take solace in the fact that you will continue this mission with your service on the College Board. Thank you for your mentorship, which made my own service on this board possible. Thank you for your friendship, which I cherish. And again, thank you for your service to our city. I know we will continue to be partners in policy, and I eagerly await to see all of the amazing things you will accomplish as an SMC trustee. Signed, Commissioner Ivanov.
Thanks, Danny.
Commissioner Ambrose.
Hi, Anastasia.
Hi.
Well, it's been an honor serving with you. And I also want to just say it's been great knowing you as a friend, and I really owe you a lot of appreciation for getting here myself. You gave me a lot of mentorship and guidance and taught me a lot about rent control generally before being able to sit here on the dais. You gave me a lot of knowledge, and I'm so appreciative of that. And also, I think it's I think there's a lot to say about the fact that you served not just one full term, but 2 full terms here, and with a lot of ingoing and outgoing members on the board. It's so great to see someone serve out their full term and really have the dedication that you've had. And that really benefits our community when you are able to, to sit here and learn and be educated and to give back to the community. And we're sad to see you go, but I think you're going to do a lot of great work on the College Board. And yeah, I'm at a loss for words, but thank you so much, Anastasia.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you.
I'll go up next. It's tough to follow all these speeches because they've all done such a good job of explaining your importance and your history here with the Rent Control Board. But just to speak to my own personal experience, I think that's what I can do best now, is quite literally I would not be here on this Rent Control Board if it weren't for you. Some of you know my history with the board, but I had an issue with my landlord and reached out to the Rent Control Board for help. And before I actually reached out to the staff, I cold emailed Commissioner Foster. I had never met her before, just found her email address on the website, reached out to her, and she very quickly responded. And that's not common just generally in government or business to get responses from people who don't know you and don't know necessarily exactly how to help you. But Commissioner Foster reached out, wanted to have a conversation about what my issue was. And not only did I feel like she heard me and she was listening to me, but she sprung into action immediately. And we dug into the issue with staff and ended up addressing that issue, utilizing the processes that we have here on the board. And I thought at that time that would sort of be the end of it, but several months later, Commissioner Foster reached out and said, hey, you should think about becoming more involved. And I had a history in working professionally in politics and government previous, but never thought that I would actually step up and run for office myself. And that truly only happened because of your recommendation and your encouragement. So thank you so much for that on a personal note. And as others have said that I want to echo, I think you truly do embody what it means to be a public servant, because you're doing this because you care so much about the work we do and the people in this community. And that's so clear to me from the first time we interacted and the 2+ years that I've been on the board, seeing you day in and day out do this work. And I think another really important thing is, obviously the procedures we have and the motions we go through are very important from a technical standpoint. But one thing I think we'll miss without you on the board is that additional explanation and passion that you give during meetings to people to make them feel like you understand them and you're not only just doing the bare minimum, going through the motions, but also filling in the gaps and helping people really truly understand what we're doing and what your reasoning is. So thank you so much for that. We'll miss you. We hope we'll see you back here. And we look forward to everything you've done.
I can come back if you, I could stay.
Yes. But the College Board needs you too, so we'll really look forward to seeing what you accomplish there and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so are there any staff members that would like to speak?
You don't have to.
Oh, well, we do. We do, we want to. So before, you should have the last word, so let me relate this. Okay. So Commissioner Foster, as was stated, has served twice as board chair, and she joined with a passion for affordable housing and tenants' rights. Her enthusiasm has been unwavering, and her efforts have significantly shaped policies that protect renters and promote housing equity in Santa Monica. She provided leadership on several voter-approved revisions to the rent control law, including reducing the maximum level rent to rents from 6% to 3%. During Commissioner Foster's tenure, the board adopted regulations eliminating the pass-through of surcharges from the property tax bill to tenants moving in March 2018 or after, and capped them at $35 for others, requiring that tenants be informed of their rights when signing leases, increasing the amounts for rent reductions when there are maintenance issues or when amenities are taken away, and helping to fight corporate short-term rentals. While her commitment to the board ends, her commitment to the community continues, because in December, she accepts a new role on the Santa Monica College Board of Trustees. For all you've done for the Santa Monica community and will continue to do, I'm pleased to present you with this plaque in recognition of your more than 8 years of service on the Rent Control Board.
Aw, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
And more goodies too for.
Oh, gosh.
There's presents.
Thank you so much. I had to, well, oh, Tracy.
Yeah, you were the one that made me talk. I tried to give her a present earlier, and she said, no, you have to do a speech. It's it's a special occasion.
That is not exactly how that went down.
No one else was there. Yep, that's right. I remember the beginning of the year, we had our first board meeting, we sat down, and I said, Anastasia, do you realize that with Tracy's departure, and with the exception of Haka, you're the most senior member on the dais? And it was kind of an interesting experience just for me, because, wow, like, you know, just that stability and consistency. So I'm not going to go on and on and on about all of the personal accomplishments and accolades that everybody else has. I just want to thank you for being a truly good human being and clearly raising another one. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much. Oh, my goodness. Ford, you got a shout out. I had to write this down or I wasn't going to get through it. I promise I'll be brief.
Oh, God, I can't, you don't have to do that.
I'm a rule follower. I was in the queue waiting.
He's the chair to recognize her.
I just want to echo what everyone else has said and also just add how wonderful it's been to have you as a partner in this work. And you have truly acted as a partner to staff, and you have always been so appreciative and understanding of the work that staff does. And I know that everyone in the agency is so appreciative of that. And I also just want to compliment you on how amazing you are at articulating the work that we do in such a way as to make it so accessible and even, dare I say, enjoyable to the public, which is no easy feat.
I got jokes.
So thank you once again for all of your service, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is it okay to go? I just want to quickly say thank you for everything. I think I have a couple friends watching at home tonight. Thank you for all these gifts, for your kind words. I'm going to try not to cry. I started this journey much like the rest of us, just like Carolyn, just like Kurt, Danny and Erica and Kay and all who have come before, as just a typical resident of Santa Monica. I was volunteering in a place that led me to have great concerns about the rights and living conditions of some of our elderly and vulnerable tenants. It somehow awakened a fire in me that led me to Santa Monicans for Renters' Rights and eventually to public service on this dais almost 9 years ago. I want to thank those leaders at SMER. Michael trained me to work the tenant hotline, and I still bear the marks of those first sessions, hearing some heart-wrenching stories from tenants and learning our law. Patricia, who taught me how to think about service and the law and how to be a good colleague on the dais, putting effectiveness above pettiness and get the job done. I'm still learning from her, and I don't plan to ever stop, Patricia. Jennifer, who sat in this seat for 8 years and taught me how to search the meeting archives, how to go over to the planning department and work with city employees, and how to run an effective meeting. Mike, who taught me how to carefully consider policy proposals. Sue and Denny, who taught me how to overcome obstacles and setbacks and to navigate that political landscape to get good work done. Kevin, Janice, and all the rest, I've sat through 10 years of SMER meetings and Dem Club meetings where I've learned how to turn caring about people into action and soaked it up like a sponge, I hope. These are our political leaders and the Brain Trust, who are like a walking, talking think tank of compassion and service. And for those leaders and everything they've taught me, I'm very grateful. The staff of this board is ever vigilant and so dedicated to service. I miss Stephen Lewis, who was general counsel when I started, who taught me how to separate my political and my personal feelings from my work, to serve the law and to keep a clean record. Okay. And Allison, who taught me how to make the law work for people and to change it when we need it to change. Such sticklers, both of them. Haka, Rebecca, Dan, Lonnie, Alvin, Lynn, Amy. These are the people who define excellence in service. I know I've forgotten so many others, Amelia, Karen, there's so many, I can't remember everybody tonight, but thank you for tolerating endless phone calls and meetings so that I could learn from all of you. Jonathan, you have been everything we'd hoped you'd be and so much more, except for throwing yourself down the stairs thing. Don't do that again. Please. But my heart belongs to Tracy Condon. Countless hours we spent together on the phone, in her office, at lunch. I hope she got that Yosemite art that was hanging on the wall. I may steal it for her if she didn't. Everything I know about truly effective public service and the processes that make it all work, I owe to Tracy. And the tenants of Santa Monica should really know how much they owe her. But more than that, she's my friend, and I doubt I'll ever have such a close bond with an executive like her ever again. To my fellow commissioners, I say thank you. I know you'll do great things up here, and I feel really comfortable and confident
leaving this agency and this dais that I love in your capable hands. Call me, if you want to talk through an item or something. I hope to stay, I'm serious. I hope to stay involved and serve as a resource and a friend. And lastly, I'll say that the best part of serving on the rent board, aside from helping our constituents, is that I met one of my best friends on this dais, my Carolyn, my partner in crime. If I did anything right up here at all, it's just because I was trying to keep up with you. The city is really lucky to have her over at City Council, and we will continue to work together wherever we are needed. The dynamic duo, my partner in crime. Andrew, Ford, and Judy, thank you for helping me, for listening to me and supporting me so that I could do this work, picking my son up after school so I could get to a closed session or get to a tenant meeting or someone who needed me. I need you, and you guys are there for me. So thank you, because I can't do it without you. My family can tell you I love this agency and this work. And without them, I couldn't do it at all. So thank you. And thank you all again. And with that, I'll sign off one last time as Commissioner Foster. Thank you.
We still need a motion to adjourn.
Not quite yet, we just have.
Oh. Oh, thank you. Wow, those are beautiful. They're bigger than my face.
These are all the commissioners.
Oh, thank you. We get a picture?
Yeah, just do it.
Yay. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, no. Oh, from Tracy. Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, let's see. Tracy is our artisan. Oh, a lot of tissue. Okay. Fragile.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow. And turquoise, my favorite color. Your beautiful craftsmanship. So can you tell everybody what this is and how it's made while I get it unwrapped? There's a wrapping set.
Well, unlike Chair Leslie, I do not know how to blow glass, so the glass isn't made by me, but the decoration is epoxy, and so I make all that. And I figure you couldn't have some big old wine glasses without a couple coasters.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I know how hard that is and how many hours it takes to make them. I admired Tracy's so much. That's so wonderful. Thank you. Absolutely beautiful. It'll be in my home. Thank you.
Well, I think it's only appropriate to ask you to make the motion to adjourn. Put you to work one more time.
The next regular meeting of the Rent Control Board will be Thursday, December 12th in this chamber at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion.
Second.
We are adjourned. I love whacking this thing. I love it.